Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I'm Guru Vasudeva, CIO of Application and Data Services at Nationwide. So today I'm going to share with you our journey in applying Lean and Agile together and doing that at scale. So as many of us know, that Agile is not new. That's what this conference is about. Those practices have been used for more than now 15 years. And people have been doing it at project level or at department level. And what we have done at Nationwide is really try to do that across all of Nationwide, right? So I'll share with you how we went about doing that and how we brought the concepts and practices of both Agile and Lean together to not only leverage those practices, but also then how do you really capture value from it? How do you show that you can save money, you can deliver faster, how you can show productivity and quality. So before I do that, I thought I should share at least a little bit of an overview about Nationwide. Many of you know Nationwide as an auto and home insurance company, which is what we advertise typically. That only represents less than 40% of our revenue. A lot of our revenue comes from number of other product lines that we traditionally marketed using different brands. Last year, we decided to go to one brand. So as a result, you will continue to see many more products. So for example, we are the largest provider of agricultural insurance in the country. We are one of the top players in very high-risk commercial insurance field. We are also the largest provider of retirement plans for state and local government employees, like 401k. Similar to that, 457 is the plan that government employees use. We are the largest custodians of those types of functions. So it's a pretty big company with more than $30 billion of revenue, and we are very proud of our mutual heritage. Right? We are not a publicly traded company. We are owned by our customers. So it really allows us to invest for the long haul in terms of our technology and our projects and so on. So that's the background about Nationwide. And what you see in this slide is the various business units that we have in personal lines insurance, like auto and home insurance, but also things like pet insurance. If you have dogs and cats, we're actually one of the largest providers of health insurance services for your pets. If you don't have that insurance coverage, I recommend that you check it out. Similarly, in the commercial lines, I already talked about that. In the financial services, we've got a variety of different products. So what happens as a result of it is, inside IT, we have the pleasure and opportunity to work across so many different business units. And we're a centralized IT function. And our challenge or opportunity is how to take advantage of the scale as a centralized IT organization, at the same time be very nimble and be adaptive and be able to understand the unique needs of each of these business units. Okay? So the other thing that's very unique about our business is we are a financial services and insurance company. As a result, our products are not tangible in the sense that it's not like a car or a water bottle or a pencil that you can touch and feel, right? So our products are all information-centric. So as a result, in these industries, you see typically people investing a lot of money on IT. At Nationwide, we spend more than $1 billion on IT because everything is information-centric. Any project or a program of strategic nature, they all have huge IT content because our products are all completely automated through IT. We have more than 9,000 people work in IT at Nationwide. Out of that, 5,500 are our associates. The remaining are contractors, most of them either in Columbus or Des Moines or Scottsdale area. We have some offshore presence, but not a huge amount. So you kind of get the breadth of the IT operation. And one of my responsibilities in application development and maintenance, how to apply standard practices across this entire breadth and deploy lean capabilities, agile capabilities, so we can actually get the benefit of a centralized IT organization. Okay? So now we've embarked on our journey with Lean and Agile almost 6-7 years ago. I'm sure that we have done small Agile work even before that. We have tried Lean before that, but a concerted effort to actually apply these practices together started almost 7 years ago. And at the time, I was in a different job, and the gentleman actually who was leading that work, Tim Lyons, and the other person who works with us now, Tom Pater, they were both describing how we're going to bring Lean and Agile together. I thought that was oxymoronic. I couldn't really see both practices truly together, because Agile is all about, you assume that you don't know everything, so as a result, you continue to discover and change your mind, right? I'll talk a little bit about that as we go forward. And now you have to keep in mind that 7-8 years ago, the perception was Agile was about not following any process, at least in the enterprise space. Lean is all about standard process, standardized methodologies, coming from manufacturing background. So I thought, how can you really bring these two things together? So I said, oh, well, it's not my department. I'm just a user of it, and I let them try it out, right? I was proven wrong. It turns out that these can be truly brought together. In fact, Lean is what actually allows us to scale Agile at the enterprise level. And I'll talk about how we have gone about doing that. And then almost 5 years ago, I got the opportunity to lead those departments and a bunch of other departments. That's when I got to really know deeply about the power of Lean and how to leverage it to scale Agile. So now, since this conference, we've got a lot of people with Agile background, I thought I'll spend a few minutes on Lean, not so much on Agile, just so that we're all on the same page. What are the differences? When you think about Lean, its origins are from Toyota Production System, right? Where Toyota really brought together a number of different techniques together to say, let's have standard process, and then let us educate everyone on those standard process. At the same time, let's empower our associates, in their case, plant workers, to really stop the production system if the process is not working, and suggest ideas to really make it better, right? The idea of continuous improvement. So there is also this concept that Toyota Production System introduced, that managers don't sit in the cube somewhere and look and manage everything through spreadsheets. Instead, managers go to where the work is happening, which is called Gemba, where the work is happening. You do Gemba walks, right? So managers are really intimately aware of how the production system is working, how the processes are working, right? Now, it's all easy to apply those concepts in manufacturing, because you can go to a production plant, you can see how the production is working, how the cars are getting done. In IT, all of the things that we're doing is all knowledge work. So how to apply Lean concepts has been evolving over the last 15 years. And when we got hold of it around 7-8 years ago, we really had to think about how to customize it for our culture and our company, right? But we built on those key concepts, right, which is visual management system, so that everybody can see how the work is progressing. We introduced Lean. One of the core concepts is the standard work, which is standardized process. We talked about how the managers are not going to sit in the cube, but instead visit where the work is going on, the Gemba walks. So those are the concepts that we have actually embedded and have tried to standardize and mature over the last several years. And I'll talk about not only how this works at the development team level, but also how it works at all the way to a CIO. What does the standard work for a CIO can look like, right? And this group obviously is very familiar with Agile, so I'm not going to really spend all the time on all the techniques of Agile. But for me, this slide really summarizes the concept of Agile and how it's different from Lean. Agile really introduces this mindset where you assume that customers don't always know exactly what they want as an outcome. So as a result, you cannot plan and just deliver what is planned, which is the traditional waterfall mindset, right? Whereas in Agile, you're embracing this mindset that knowledge improves as you discover more, so you may change your mind. So instead of delivering what was planned, let's deliver what is truly desired by the customer, right? So then there are a bunch of different techniques to really make all of that happen. And we definitely embrace a lot of those techniques, and we also marry it with lean principles to really scale this across all of nationwide development teams, okay? So over the last 7 years since this journey, we have gone from 25 different departments that are doing development differently, using different tools and techniques, to a model where many of our teams, now we're not 100% there, they are using very standardized practices, okay? And we recently announced a reorganization. We're going to take it all the way to 100%, right? We are going to have a very consistent way of how management system works and how development is going to happen. So that journey is going to take us some time to get there, but we have really made a huge strides in going towards this model over the last 7 years. We also had huge amount of dependence on subject matter experts. We had huge amount of time slicing. People were working on maintenance work and then working on project work. Something goes wrong, they get back to maintenance work. We have really focused on separating maintenance and application development and really allowed people to really focus on the key area that they're responsible for. So it's not just one thing, it's a multiple things that we have done over the years that has actually allowed us to scale Agile at the enterprise level. Not at a department level, not at a project level, but at the enterprise level across business units. We also have been able to drive standardization. And one of the unique concepts is some people think that when you drive standardization, you kill innovation. And that doesn't have to be the case. So if you truly believe in the original concepts of Toyota Production System, it said, we will have a standard. However, if the standard is not working, employees should be able to really pull the on cord and stop the production so that you can actually work on fixing the process. Now, it's hard to do in knowledge work exactly the same way, but similar concepts of continuous improvement you can really still instill, and that allows for innovation. And we also have embraced very, very massive effort on continuous learning culture. When you have thousands of employees, how do you make sure that you really provide them opportunity to learn on a regular basis? It's also part of this transformation. I don't have time today to really go through it. One of the techniques that we have introduced is Teaching Thursdays. Every other Thursday, our associates hold a couple of hours in the afternoon when we have a teaching forum. Right? So it's not one conference room. We're talking about 50, 60 conference rooms booked to teach a variety of different topics, and hundreds of people, thousands of people attend these sessions. That allows us to really do, on a regular basis, peer-to-peer teaching, because as you all know, as adults, we don't necessarily learn the best when you just go to a classroom. Instead, here, you're really getting to, in small sessions, getting to know your peer, who's the subject matter experts. That way you can actually reach out to them later on when you have questions. So there are a lot of different things that we've done that has allowed us to really scale these capabilities. So let's talk about what is the benefit. Like, I'm a CIO, right? So I need to really convert these into dollars and cents at the end of the day. Not just make sure that I feel good, right? So in the software engineering space, so far we have scaled it to 720 people that are part of my organization that I have been able to measure. Now, that's not the only place where we've actually deployed Lean and Agile across nationwide IT. But as mentioned, the next iteration of our org model actually brings all of that together, so you will be able to see in the next 2-3 years how the benefits will be actually accumulated across all of this. But as of today, these are the metrics that I have. This 720 people embraced these concepts, right? Last year alone, we were able to get $28 million of savings by using Agile and Lean techniques. How did we do that? Because by using these standardized processes, you have clear roles and responsibilities. You have automated test-driven development practices where it makes sense. That leads to significantly higher quality. 83% of the 200 releases these teams really delivered for a variety of different applications like nationwide.com or our billing system or our call center system. They released more than 200 releases. 83% of them went in with 0 defects. 0 low defects, high defects, critical defects, period, right? I've been around software engineering for a long time, and I had never really even dreamt that it was possible to achieve this level of quality, right? It's pretty impressive what these techniques together can actually deliver. So when you don't introduce defects, you have less rework. So then you can actually quantify the savings from that, and that's how we really get to some of the savings. The second thing that we measure is productivity. 57% of these releases went in the top quartile productivity. What I mean by that is we use a technique called SLIM from QSM. It's a company called QSM. What it allows us to do is take at the end of every release, take a look at the number of lines of code that the teams have produced, and then we track the number of hours it went into actually making that happen. And then we also look at how many people were brought on board, let go from that particular team. That allows us to really calculate a productivity index. And if you're interested in measuring productivity, SLIM is a great tool. There are multiple other ways of doing it, but we have chosen to use SLIM. SLIM also allows us to then say, how do we compare each of these releases to the industry average? So when we do that, 57% of these releases, of the 200 releases, were in the top quartile. So that you can convert to savings, right? So in other words, it would have taken much longer for us to do. So we compare it to our baseline productivity, what it used to be, and then we are able to actually demonstrate that we have savings. The third one that I did not put here is actually the savings from hourly labor rate, right? By having standardized processes and being able to scale it, what you can do is you can actually inject a lot more entry-level talent from out of school, because there is an inherently built system that allows you to train them, guide them, and that allows you to really bring down your blended rate down, and that also leads to savings for us. That's just in software engineering. Now, 2-3 years ago, we decided if it works in software engineering, why not in application maintenance? And we have now scaled it to more than 1,500 people, and that in application maintenance for like incidents, responding to outages, report requests that you get from business partners, remediating any small defects and things of that nature. And we have been able to get $31 million of savings every year, basically. So it's a phenomenal business case to apply lean and agile practices even in application maintenance. Most of it is lean, very little of it is agile, but similar concepts. And we have been able to do it at the same time increase employee engagement in those departments. Okay? Customer satisfaction has remained the same. So you can actually get close to 20% savings, labor savings, and still be able to deliver and keep customers happy and employees happy. I also have the pleasure of running our help desk, which is a pretty big help desk. Around 200 people work in the help desk, so it's a pretty big call center by any measure, right? So we said, why don't we apply it to the call center, lean concepts? And what we have been able to get there is around $1.7 million. That's around 17% of the labor we've been able to save there. At the same time, maintaining satisfaction in the call center. Okay? So we've been, over the years, been applying these concepts to not only software engineering, application maintenance, and also into help desk. Now we are also applying some of the lean concepts in infrastructure area. So our lean journey, how did it start? As I mentioned, this gentleman, Tim Lyons and Tom Pater, they were tasked with really testing out how can we really standardize Agile practices, because just like many companies, we had many, many people trying out Agile practices in their little departments, little projects, and so on. We wanted to take the best of those and really make them standardized across the company. So we started with 3-4 teams. We call them lines, but they are really development teams. Each team has got a tech lead, a scrum master, a test lead. So they came up with all these standards, right? Who are the leadership roles, and then who are the kind of the additional developers and testers that you put on those projects. And it was successful. So we then scaled it to up to around 25 development teams. And this happened a couple of years after I took that role. And I was seeing really lots of benefits from it, like maybe a year after I took these departments over. And I talked about the benefits that we were seeing. So I was wondering, can I really apply these concepts in project management? And what we agreed to do was see, can we really deploy standard practices for project managers? So we just picked 4 things. One is, how do you manage work breakdown structure? How do you manage risk? How do you manage expectations? How do you manage financials, right? Because every project manager was doing things slightly differently. We said, what would that look like if we were to do that in project management, and connected those lean practices with the development teams, right? And we started to see better risk management, better dependency management coming out of that. And also, the complaints about, every PM is kind of doing different things started to go away. People really started to believe that, okay, if you got a PM from this team, they typically at least will do these basic things on a consistent way, right? So like this, by department, we were really rolling out lean practices and embracing any Agile concepts as well. And that's when my leadership team and I said, okay, these are all bottom-up lean deployment, right? So frontline work. If this really works for frontline leaders, why can't it work for management, right? That's when we decided to really do the top-down lean deployment. And that has been a journey only in the last 2.5 years that we have embarked on. We have now scaled it across software engineering, project management, requirements and testing, and I mentioned the help desk. So across all of the departments that are in my organization, we have deployed lean management practices. And I'll talk about what that really means from top down, okay? So we introduced this 4 tiers of lean building blocks for lean leadership, okay? First is at the front line. You got tech leads or scrum masters managing a team, or a project manager managing a project. We deployed standard practices, and I mentioned that we did that several years ago, right? And then we said, what does then a director do in that type of a production system? And some of these ideas came to us when we visited Palo Alto Medical Center, which is a primary care, just like Ohio Health. This is in the Bay Area. We visited them, and what I was impressed was they've actually deployed lean practices all the way from physicians, nurses, schedulers, all the way to, we met with the CEO of the organization. Even he was actually doing, as a 30-year practicing physician turned into an administrator, he's using lean practices like A3s and so on. So we said, why can't we really do that at Nationwide? So we said, what did we learn from those things? And we said, let's really deploy practices for our directors. So what are the standard work if you are a director? What are you expected to do on a day-to-day basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis? What are the expectations of you visiting where the work is happening? And similarly, then if you are an officer of the company, like a vice president, or an executive like an associate vice president, what are your standard work? And that is different if you're in a software engineering team versus if you're in a project management team, but they all have to be linked together. So we did that And then, of course, what does it look like for a CIO? So it was iterative. So most of it was really deployed at the bottom up level. And then when we started to really deploy the lean practices, lean management practices, we started from top down. We first actually wrote my standard work, leader standard work, and then we asked all of my direct reports to do the same thing, and then we just started to cascade it from team to team, okay? So then this is how my visual management system looks now, where every week when I meet with my direct reports who are heads of each of these departments, software engineering or project management, requirements and testing, we actually have a stand-up of our own. So what we do is we spend around 20 minutes looking at the top 25 blue chip programs across the company. Because we provide these services across the company, we need to be on top of what is going well, what's not going well for each of these projects. We're not trying to pretend to manage these projects. We've got great PMs who can do that. What we are really doing is we are really focusing on what roadblocks we can remove that they cannot remove on their own. If they don't have the right leadership on these projects, then we know that on a weekly basis and we can course correct. If they have an issue that's escalating, we know that very near real time, so we can actually help remove those roadblocks. So similarly, we have something called an accountability board where all the big assignments are actually managed for all of my direct reports using similar techniques. The type of collaboration you actually generate when you deploy lean practices at the management level is phenomenal. A lot of things that used to happen through email now becomes collaboration, discussion, and so on. So it's been a phenomenal experience for us over the last 2.5 years to really get through this change for us. And then I think we may have deleted a slide here by mistake, but when we make the slides available, I'll show you what does my standard work look like, what am I expected to do on a daily basis, a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, and so on. And then we track how good I'm doing on those things, and we publish that in the same room, which is available for everyone. So we're really going for this environment of where there is no fear of repercussions. There is really focus on transparency of issues and risks so that we can actually remove the roadblocks. We don't necessarily focus on who did what, but rather what process broke down, right, in order to really get to that maybe not a so good outcome. So then we use A3. Even at my leaders level, we all embrace A3 and we actually do them. So we've been able to really bring Agile and Lean together to able to really scale Agile at an enterprise level. It's been a phenomenal journey for us. So in closing, I have 4 things to share with you in terms of thoughts. Then we can open up for any questions. So first and foremost is change management practices, okay? So, org change management is getting a lot of buzz these days, right? So many people talk about OCM. There is a belief in OCM community that you focus on changing people's thinking so that you can change their behavior. So that's why you see a lot of OCM techniques are focused on, let's explain to people why we're doing, what we're doing, and those kind of things. There is definitely place for that. But one of the big insights that we had came from some of the work that was done at NUMI. If you don't know NUMI, a case study, I encourage you to research it, NUMI. This is the plant that was actually taken over by, it was a joint collaboration between Toyota and General Motors. It was actually General Motors' worst performing plant with huge union issues. And they were just producing really, really bad quality products, okay? So what happens is, for whatever reason, GM and Toyota agreed, this is like 25 years ago, they agreed to really partner together and test out if they can embrace the Toyota concepts, lean principles, and really improve productivity. Without changing union contracts, none of that. It's amazing, within a year or 18 months, they've been able to go from worst plant in GM's books to the best plant in GM's books, okay? And one of the concepts John Shook talks about, who actually led that transformation, is really change the behavior to change the thinking. What that means is that you need to figure out what are the practices you want to happen in your organization, and you actually teach people to start doing it, and then over a period of time, they begin to change their mindset. So a simple example is that when we started our stand-ups for my direct reports, I had several direct reports that come from very traditional command and control project management background. So we did a book study so that they can get some context. This is the old model, so that old model of change management, so that they at least had some understanding. But then when we decided to really go to the new model, we just started doing it, right? We had a coach, our sensei, if you will, who taught us, but we started doing it, and over a period of time, non-believers became believers. And that's the technique that we've used for all of the lean transformations that we have led, whether in software engineering or application maintenance or in call center. The second one is Agile and standardization can actually work together. There is this concept that Agile is about free for all, even though many people are now beginning to realize that that doesn't work in large teams and large organizations. We have really been able to demonstrate that you can still have the Agile mindset and at the same time drive huge amount of standardization, and that's been very, very powerful for us. The third thought is if you want to scale this, obviously you need to instill the culture of continuous improvement. And I did not really have a lot of time today to go into those details of how we have really deployed it. It's one thing to really have the standard, so you actually explain to people what does the basic model works like. But it doesn't mean that standard is there forever, right? You absolutely want to be open to experiment and change the standard. So you need to constantly push standardization, at the same time encourage continuous improvement, and make it safe for people to really bring out and say, this process is not working. And that model, now we are in the next iteration of actually making it even better, especially we have a huge reorganization that's going on right now. So we will actually focus on connecting it all the way across our departments. Today it is more department-centric, the CI world, continuous improvement, but we're going to focus on doing that across our departments. And last but not least, for those of you who are here thinking that if I want to apply some of these things within my company, if you are a leader or a manager or an executive, you absolutely have to convert this into dollars and cents, right? At the end of the day, dollars are the currency of the business, or the language of the business, so we need to be able to convert these into dollars. That's why when I was thinking about how to scale this, first metrics that I went after in software engineering were really listed there: productivity, quality, and hourly labor rate. These three, I thought, if I could get the baseline, then I can demonstrate whether my system is getting better than the baseline, or if not, what do I need to change in the process so that we can actually make it better. And that specific idea has been tremendous for us to sustain this, because with every leadership change or with any business partner changes, you sometimes get pushback. Why are we doing these kinds of things? Why don't we do something else, right? By having these metrics, now we have this tracked over the last 7 years now, maybe not 7, maybe 6, we've been able to track. We do have some good set of metrics from starting all the way from baseline and then what we have been able to deliver. And I showed you earlier some of the benefits, particularly in software engineering. Last year's savings alone was around $28 million annualized savings. In the application maintenance, around annualized savings of $31 million, right? So the same metric doesn't work for every value stream. For software engineering, these are the three that I chose to focus on. For application maintenance, you focus on different set of metrics, which is really the total cost of doing that application maintenance. How can you really go towards more of a fixed capacity, if it makes sense, and then try to see how you're still being able to keep your SLA going, meet the SLA. In call center, you have to take a completely different mindset, right, in the help desk. So specific metrics might be different for each of the value streams in IT, but the idea of being able to have those baseline metrics and being able to track them from the early in your journey and then being able to convert it into finance and have the support of our finance department that these numbers do, hold up, right? So those are the 4 closing thoughts that I would have in terms of how to scale Lean and Agile. With that, I will open up for any questions.
And I have the microphone, so if people want to raise their hand, I'll ask the first question. Thank you, Guru. And we do have time for questions, so hopefully people will be interactive here since you've given us some time. Mm-hmm. You mentioned the maintenance work and sort of dev work being separated out.
Yeah.
And then this progression of building zero defect releases.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of organizations that are large that do separate it, and then others that are trying to converge them based upon the practices and the automation and the zero defect releases to eliminate that, to create more maintainability in your code, and that's thought of within the build organization versus an afterthought and put onto the maintenance organization to either refactor or do other things to keep that fixed team cost. Mm-hmm. How are you trying to meet that challenge? Because when you're pushing out releases with zero defects, one would think at least my maintenance should start to come down.
Yeah.
And I should be able to start leveraging the talent in that pool of people to start building better full stack skills for them so that you don't have this divide between your resources or this, not second class citizens, but some people do view, I'd rather be on the build side than the maintenance side. So how do you manage it as a CIO from a either training program perspective, or how do you see it morphing over the next 5 to 6 years at Nationwide?
Okay. So you have to bear with me. It's a long answer to that question. So first of all, we have to define what is application maintenance versus how we define software engineering, right? We defined application development or software engineering as any project that's more than X number of hours, right? So more than 500 hours or something like that. There was a specific cutoff, I forget now. So the reason why we thought that that's a good split is if there is a small defect that you want to really remediate, and then there's also incident, there is also some walk-up request for a report or something like that. These are all distractions that take you away from a project that you're working on that is going to take a long time to deliver results, right? So these other things are urgent, like an incident is urgent, but maybe not as important as a long project that you're working on. By combining them together in one team, you have this time slicing going on. In fact, we had done a study where at the beginning of every team that we went through lean application maintenance journey, we do a study of how many times people time slice between different contexts. In some cases, they were changing topics more than 15 to 18 times a day. Now, if you divide that by 8 hours, they're not even getting like 25 minutes per topic, right? So, and then there is enough study that shows that when people are time slicing like that between different problem domains, then they are not able to, it takes a startup time, right? So, to get back to the next topic, right? So from that point of view, we concluded that these large projects should be separated, and then all the smaller efforts like incident and small defect remediation and so on should be separated, right? And that is what actually gave us the $31 million of savings that I talked about when I was talking about the application maintenance, and I'll bring that slide up here in a second. Now, that was, every organization, there are some political constraints, right? That's the best that we could do at that time. In the next version of our org model that we are in the process of deploying right now, we are really thinking about this slightly differently, okay? What we are doing is we are saying any software engineering, that means whether it be small projects or a big project or a small defect remediation, we're going to bundle all those things together into a release. So any code change is going to be bundled together. And we're not going to make the distinction where the funding comes from, but rather the nature of the work, and we're going to all funnel them through what we call development teams or development lines, right? And that's the model that we're going to. So then what is then remaining in application maintenance, traditional application maintenance, is responding to incidents, doing DR tests, doing walk-up reports, those kinds of things. So if you look at the nature of the skill set that's needed to do those 3-4 things, it's very different than software engineers, like the development type work, right? Now, some people can go back and forth and they get value, but the work itself is a very different value stream, very different optimization techniques. So that's the next phase that we're going to, where all code changes, regardless of the source of funding, are all going to come together, and they will be bundled into releases. So we're going to move from a project-centric mindset to a more of a product-centric mindset. Now, this is all designed right now. We are not there yet. It's going to take around 2.5 years to really roll out that change. And that itself is another phase of the journey where we are estimating around $60 million of annual savings from that.
Thank you. Questions?
With this journey of lean and agile together, where do we foresee architecture and technology moving in future at Nationwide?
I mean, as you know, we did push out lean concepts even within our architecture community. We have standard work for architects that was deployed a few years ago. But I think the same practices definitely can be applied across all different types of professions inside IT, but then you have to tweak it. What architects do is very different than what developers do. But if your question is more, are we going to be responsive and quickly changing technology and so on, I think we'll be forced to in some type of technology solutions, right, where the market is changing very quickly for different mobile development techniques and so on. So obviously, you'll see much more responsive changes. Whereas for architecture for our record-keeping systems or packages that we buy, definitely they're going to be more long-standing. You make a decision, you stick with that for like 10 years, 15 years. Whereas some of the front-end systems, I'm sure we will be evolving them very, very rapidly in the future years.
So how do you see technology disrupting your core business? Not just how do we get better at building technology to support it, but do you see technology actually disrupting the insurance or the financial business?
In a big way, and that was definitely not the focus of my presentation today. But if you really look at pick any business for that matter, right? In financial services, obviously, many of you may have heard about robo-advisors, right? So these are automated investment allocation engines, if you will. In fact, I myself have an account with Wealthfront, and it's very fascinating how it actually works. And it basically mimics what would an advisor do, and it can do things that are typically available for a very high net worth individual, like a more than $5 million in invested asset, for people with $10,000 in investment, right? So those are the kind of things that are possible when we use predictive analytics and sometimes cognitive techniques and those kinds of things. That's possible. So we are definitely looking at how that will disrupt our various financial services products, whether it be annuities or life insurance or any of those things. If you take a look at on the auto side, the ultimate vision, if you will, I forget now the name of the gentleman who wrote this futurist article. Like, if you imagine 25 years from now, when the fleet of all the cars that we all are driving has been replaced, and they're all got these, like, assume for a minute that autonomous driving has become like ubiquitous and everybody has that, do you even need to own a car? And if you don't own a car, today you need a convertible because it's a beautiful day. You summon, like through Uber or Lyft, a convertible to come and pick you up to work. But on the way back, I need to go pick up my kids, so I need a minivan. You can summon that. In that type of a model, absolutely, it's possible. I don't know whether it's going to happen in the US because we love our cars. But it's possible to imagine a future where maybe you don't need auto insurance, right? It comes to you as part of the product. Now, that's like a while away because we still have the current fleet of cars. But even today, how do you really price based on the miles you drive? Those kind of technologies and companies and business models are already out there, right? So there is definitely lots of different disruptions that are taking place to our core business, and we are closely watching it. At the same time, trying to make sure it's like the innovator's dilemma, right? You have got something that's really working, and how do you really shift? And when do you shift?
I have a question around standardization that you mentioned.
Can you speak up? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I have a question around standardization that you mentioned a couple of times,
Yeah.
right? I mean, when you talk about standardization in an agile or kind of lean IT, right, are you talking about, hey, at an org level, we're going to define a superset of process elements, and individual teams kind of are free to pick what they want and what kind of works for them, but within the boundaries of the superset? Is that the approach that you had, or is it more like, hey, I have a standard template for the entire org?
So are you saying that, okay, we've got set of standards, superset, and then you get to pick and choose, right?
That's right.
Okay. The answer is actually no. There are some core set of practices we are saying you must embrace. And if you don't want to embrace, then you should give a reason why not. That's the model that we have used. Now, of course, you have to use common sense and make exception if it makes sense. But if you have a better idea, then why not really submit those ideas through the continuous improvement channel, and then maybe do a small experiment in your project or a department, right? And that's why we are taking the next evolution in our org model, where we've got, we are trying to optimize how our business face-off is very intimately still close to our business partners. At the same time, who's responsible for software engineering practices, testing practices, they're all getting consistent direction across the board. So it actually, we're trying to really optimize both ends of this and allow for innovation, experimentation, at the same time push standardization.
Hi. I'm a big proponent of big visible charts and information radiators,
Yeah.
so I want to go back to your C-suite visual management board. Can you talk briefly about how that board is populated and kept up to date with so many projects and work streams being displayed?
Yes, it's a great question. So let me go to this board, right? So first of all, in my departments today, I've got 2 production floors that we manage, right? If you really use the lean terminology, you need to get very clear what is the production that you're managing or the value stream you're managing, right? I've got 2 distinctly different ones. One is program and project delivery, and the other one is help desk, right? And you don't really manage them the same way. For program and project delivery, we have more than 1,000+ projects that are going on all the time, right? Because we spend close to $500 million every year on IT-enabled projects. Okay, obviously, I cannot really watch all of them, right? So we pick the top 25 or so programs. Some of these programs last 6-7 years and may spend cumulatively around $300-400 million. So they're big programs. Some of them are high risk, but maybe high reward, but relatively small spend, right? So we pick those, and what we do is we look at the first column that we look at is the status, right? What is the status as reported by the PM? And that directly comes from our PM tracking system through our Clarity, right? And then the remaining 4 columns that I really look at on a weekly basis is the leadership healthy? Because if you don't have the right leadership for the program, then there is no hope of this program really succeeding. Sometimes that leadership doesn't work for you. They work in your business partner's organization or another part of IT. And we still track that because we want to be able to really go have that dialogue with those partners, right? So the first column is easy to update because it comes from Clarity and it's as reported by the PM. The remaining 4 columns that we track, I mean, not saying that this is what you should do, but that's what works for us. They're all subjective. They're leadership intuition, right? So the way we do it is our PM organization, the team that actually reports into me that manages all the programs, they actually use the same stand-up board as I do with my direct reports, right? So they are close enough to this portfolio, they update that information, the status information, and then any indication they might have, they put them there. Now, it doesn't become our opinion until we go through our own stand-up as a leadership team. So we look at that information, but then the third column that we look at is how are we staffing? Because inside Nationwide IT, we are a large consulting organization, basically, just like any of the consulting organizations in town. So how is my team staffing? Do we have any staffing challenges? That allows us to really say, do I have scarcity of Hadoop developers or Informatica developers or AngularJ developers, right? It allows me to find patterns across programs. And then we, of course, look at technology risk because that impacts us in a big way. And then last but not least is, are there any escalations that is happening that has to cross org boundaries? Because inside an org, one person can manage that VP can manage that. If it requires across the areas, how do we do it? So what we do is the first column is updated by our PM community. The remaining columns, they might provide us input, but we actually talk through each program as a leadership team every week. That allows us to be very intimately close to what's happening. So we do it right there, update it right there.
Right here.
Yep.
Hi, thank you for talking so much about the enterprise scaling. The standardizing the processes across the teams. 2 questions. One, did you choose a particular scaling model or standard that you're following, like say for Nexus or something like that, to help you with how do you plan across that whole program management type level? And then also kind of following on your previous answer about you set the standards and if they want to try something different, to what detail do you establish those standards? So for example, you identify certain practices, but how they execute those practices may be different from team to team type of thing.
Exactly. So on the first question, because we have such a community of enthusiasts, right, across the company, we get all these ideas from them as to what is going on in the industry, what are the best practices. So far, we have not embraced a particular technique. Instead, we have really looked at the best practices and have created our own version across the board. And then we continuously tweak it and make it better. And what we have is working, and it is getting better. So as a result, we have not chosen to dramatically change it at this point, even though there are some frameworks like SAFe and others are getting a lot of publicity lately. But we are looking, though, at this point, with the recently shifting how we are going to organize, how do we really take this lean and agile concepts to end-to-end, all the way to planning work that the business partners are doing? And that's where we are going to explore some of these tools that may be out there, because in an ideal world, we would want our business partners to also completely embrace these techniques so that we can be truly lean and agile across the board. And we're going to try that. And it's not going to happen overnight because of the nature of our business. It's very different than what you might see with like a Facebook or a Netflix, right? So we need to customize it for our own area. But the short answer to your question, first question is, we amalgamate the best practices and create our own. Your second question is to what degree? We're not trying to micromanage people, right? We definitely are trying to give baseline expectations. Like the PM example is a good one. There are hundreds of things that a program manager does. But as I mentioned, we focused on those 4 things. How do you manage work breakdown structure? How do you manage financials? How do you manage risk? How do you manage dependencies, right? Those 4 we thought were important, and we tried to really push standardization across the board. And then techniques inside that, I'm sure they vary because of the nature of the projects. Yes?
Are there questions on this side of the room? Because
Yeah.
I was over there for quite a bit. If there's not, we got one more over here. Okay. Hold on.
I have a question around cost savings. So how does like if I'm trying to create a business case to say, hey, if we adopt Agile and lean practices, at the end of the day, this is what we're going to realize as a cost saving. Is it a commitment that you make up front, or say, hey, you know what, there are enough opportunities for savings and improvements, and then you say there is going to be some realization of cost savings at the end of the journey, but let's commit to it. There is enough opportunity to start and then just go start with it? Or is it more like, hey, you need to define what it is before you start on the journey?
So I couldn't hear clearly. Let me see if I can paraphrase and tell me if I got it right. So your question is, do you commit to the savings up front, or you say, here is an estimate, and then you go and figure it out as you go along? Is that?
That's right.
Okay.
So the estimate in the sense that, hey, we know that there is enough opportunity for cost savings, and just go start doing it. And then at the end of the journey, we just realize what it is.
Yeah. So for some of these initiatives that I talked about, we needed consulting help, right? So for example, when we did the lean application maintenance work, we needed consulting help because we didn't want to figure it all on our own. So in those cases, we needed to be order of magnitude accurate in terms of a savings estimation. So we did a range. We estimated around 15% of savings. There are 2,000 people work in application maintenance, as it was defined like 2.5, 3 years ago. We said we can get around 15% savings. That's around 300 people, right? And then you can convert that into dollars, and does the business case hold good to really bring the consultants in? And how did we arrive at 15%? We did a study, and we measured, is this true, right? So we needed to at least be somewhat in the ballpark, right? And it turns out that we have been able to deliver close to 18 to 19% savings. So we have been able to beat our own estimates, right? So it depends on your culture, it depends on your organization, your financial techniques within your company. But I think if you're going to do something big and you need some investment, you need to get at least a decent idea. And then, of course, there are other techniques you can use to minimize your investment, right? We said, it seems like a good idea, saving around, when it's all said and done, it's going to save around $40 million every year for us in application maintenance because we've been able to beat our original estimate consistently across departments. We said we don't know for sure it's going to happen. So we have a good hunch, but we don't know for sure. So we said, let's do a pilot in 2 departments and only pay for that consulting help. And then we saw we were able to beat more than 15% in those 2 departments. Then we actually decided to do across the board. Yeah.
Okay. With
All right.
that, I don't think there's any more questions. Thank you for your
Great.
presentation.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely.